Hello everybody, and welcome to part 3 of our May Rode0Day competition videos. This one is also a little bit different from most of the other things that we've been doing. In particular, this video is all about failures. Unlike most of the videos that I put out and most of the recordings I do, today's episode is entirely me not being able to get things running. It's also different in that it is a two-part episode because there are actually two separate recordings of me trying to get things working, and in both of them, what I want to do doesn't work. So, with that said, just a reminder, what we're doing is we're working on the Rode0Day competition. It's a fuzzing competition, which I took part in May. And we're now releasing the videos now so that the results don't get tampered with because I'm publishing this for anybody to watch who wants to. So in the first part of today's episode, we're going to just try and run AFL QEMU to fuzz the binaries, starting with the lib.jpg stuff. Now, there's bookmarks on the side if you want to take a look and jump around, assuming you are watching the recording and not the premiere. Things that are happening here. The first thing we try and set up is AFL Other Arch. It's a shellfish developed distribution for running AFL and other architectures, but it's also very good for just getting QEMU running in the first place. I get that set up, I build it, and then after a little while I realize that, oh, AFL QEMU doesn't build. Now the reason for that is because in part 1 of this episode, I'm trying on the 1804 Ubuntu VM. If you remember in part 1 of this series, I mentioned that in the recording, I mentioned that it worked fine, but in my little recap at the end, I mentioned that I was wrong about it and that we were going to run into a roadblock later. This is that roadblock. Turns out that QEMU, at least the version that ships with the AFL patches, won't build on recent versions of Ubuntu. There's a memfd change. And I go into a little bit more detail in the actual recording, but needless to say, I need to roll things back. So then in part 2, we try and do that. I roll back to a Ubuntu 1604 VM. I build it off recording because nobody really wants to watch me build a Ubuntu VM. It's pretty boring. You click a couple buttons and wait. But I get that running. We go through AFL Other Arch again. We get AFL QEMU trace. I move all of the binaries in, get things set up, and then I realize that I screwed up again. You see, I got everything set up. I built an Ubuntu 1604 VM, but I built a 32-bit Ubuntu 1604 VM. And that doesn't work very well when I want to run some 64-bit binaries. Now I could run them in QEMU, but at the end of all of this, we decide to just take all of this, put it to the side, we'll get a 64-bit VM rather than trying to jump through all the hoops of getting the 64-bit libraries and have everything run. So like I said, this video, this is about the failures when it comes to fuzzing. None of the things I try work, everything is bad, and at the end of the episode, I'm actually feeling pretty discouraged. But the good news is, this is the 3rd episode in this series, and episodes 4 and 5 get much better. So I'll see you all at the end again, and hopefully this is entertaining for everyone. Let's go! Okay, and we're going into part 3, I guess? I think this is part 3 of the Rode0Day recordings. So in the previous sections, we got things set up, we talked through why we were doing it. We also got AFL up and running on the source version of the lib.jpg binary. We also got our reporter set up. That was part 2. In this part, we're going to try and start doing some of the binaries. So in addition to the source version of lib.jpg, there's also a binary-only lib.jpg, as well as 2 other binaries, a modified SQLite and a modified file. So
we need to get that up and running. Well, I guess we don't need to, but if we're going to be competitive, we need to be fuzzing all of these, or doing something with all of them. Not necessarily fuzzing, because there are plenty of other ways to find bugs that don't involve fuzzing. But, in any case, we need to get this ready. So we're going to get this started. Sorry about the little delay there. In between the submission script and this, I also put together a recording on building a display for all of this. So we've got a little bit of a display going to show what some of the results coming out of the fuzzer look like. So that's up and running too, and there's, you know, lots of things going on at the same time, so it's a little distracting. But with that said, this is all up and running. The next thing to do is we need to get these three over here, the JPEG, the binary JPEG, the SQLite, and the file up and running. My hope is that I can get away with just using AFL QEMU. I don't know if it's going to work entirely, but that's my hope at least. What we're going to do first is we're going to use the Shellfish's AFL multi-arch. Why did you not align right? Let's close some of these. Most of these are from the building the visualization thing. Oh, and while we're at it, might as well show this off. So this is our current status. We have gone from 4th place to 5th place because another of the Northeastern teams has gotten up and running. So yeah, we're dragging a little bit. There's 6, but only 5 are being displayed here. In any case, we need to get some of these other things up, so we're gonna give that a try. And we want the AFL. Oops. I never remember what it's actually called, but Shellfish put out this AFL Other Arch, which is what I've been using recently to do it. It's actually super easy. We should hopefully be able to just run the build for x86-64, and that'll just work. We'll see. At least my hope is that this is going to just work. Okay, lid tool not found. don't remember if they had a full list of stuff. I really hate that I have to do this every time because I never remember the full list of things. Okay. So I don't know what happened there. So it didn't work for some reason to actually try and grab those. So like it didn't apparently have the AFL QEMU stuff, but I didn't see an error, which is annoying. Crap. I forgot about this, and this is going to be a huge pain. I'm going to have to set up a separate set of VMs for this to work. Because that's the error I wanted to... well, I needed to see. This is the memfd thing, so in later versions of AFL, you can't use... or later versions of Ubuntu, you can't use AFL because there's this whole memfd thing. Apparently they fixed in whatever version is in the repo. But not for this version. So I got a couple options here. I could try and fix this, or I could set up another VM with Ubuntu 17.04. I'm trying to think what the best option here is. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna let this go and get a new thing set up. That sucks. Ugh. Okay. Well, since I gotta go download a nice big VM, well, I have to go download an older version of Ubuntu and get it installed. I'm gonna stop this for now because installing VMs is even worse than watching code compile. So, thanks everybody for watching. Next one of these, we shall hopefully have a VM up, and we're gonna give AFL QEMU a try.
Okay, time for just a quick intermission here. So we finished the first part where I realized that the Ubuntu 18.04 VM wasn't going to work. And now we get into the slightly longer and more discouraging part where I realize that I have built the wrong Ubuntu 16.04 VM. One of the big things here is that there's a big time jump here, which is a big part of why it's so discouraging. The first several parts of this series I recorded towards the beginning of May, but then I had DEF CON Quals to play in, as well as a number of other things going on in my life that for most of May, I didn't have a ton of time to work on this. And when I did, I was building this VM, which actually caused several problems for me. One of the big ones is the video driver stuff I posted on Twitter about, but in any case, it took me a while to get this VM built, and then, as you'll see in the next part we're about to start, it still didn't work. So, in any case, let's jump into that and watch me yet again have the wrong VM.
Okay, so as you can tell from the date down there, I've jumped ahead a little bit here. I ended up having a lot come up this month, so I didn't get to do as much recording and work on this as I had intended. Turns out having to... So, I guess let's start by explaining what's going on today. Today we're looking at the... we're going to try and start doing the binary versions of these. So there's 3 binary-only binaries for the competition, and we need to try and get them all to run in some form of AFL. Well, we don't need to, but we want to fuzz them. For that reason, the default is to try and get AFL QEMU to work. The issue is that the version of QEMU that the AFL patches work on doesn't work on Ubuntu 18.04 or 17.10, I know. I think it also doesn't work on 17.04. Basically, if you want a supported version of Ubuntu, you need to use 16.04, which was the last LTS. So, I built a VM, something happened, it didn't... Basically, the reason there's been so much time here is because I'd sit down, I'd go, oh, I need to get this VM set up, I'd start setting the VM up, I'd get distracted and not finish it, come back later, sit down, do the same thing again. Anyway, it's taken a while, but we're ready to go now. So, yeah, let's fix that real quick. I want to do an SSH... I always forget what it is. I believe it's copy ID. So what we just did there was we pushed a SSH key to the VM. That way I don't have to keep track of the password. Just a little bit easier that way. And this is there. We just set up Ubuntu 16.04. Like, it doesn't even have Vim installed. So let's grab those real quick. And then while we're at it, this over here so people can see it with me. We want AFL other arch. Now there are other ways to get this set up, but at least in my experience, this is actually the easiest way to do it. So this is a project from Shellfish that they put together to do their fuzzing on different architectures. But it turns out if you just build the x86-64 version, it just works. Okay. And we want to do a build x86-64. Lib tool. Unfortunately, we're going to have to go through this and do this manually because we're just going to do this by error message, which is unfortunately one of the slowest ways to do it. But I don't remember what all of them are, so we're doing this one at a time. Those are curious. This is what we're listening to is Monster Cat. They just had a relatively recent new Instinct release, so that's what we're listening to now. It's the first time we've had it on stream, which is cool. Looks like it's building, which is exciting. Okay, hopefully I have this working right. In the wrong version of Ubuntu, we're going to get a compile error here because I think it's the memfd syscall takes different arguments, or the libc wrapper, one of the two uses different arguments. And honestly, at this point, it may have been faster just to change the patch to work, but I don't know. Okay. So this may actually work. We need to go get our binaries. So. Let's remember what I was doing here. So we have all of this. Okay. It's not too much. So what I'm checking here is I want to make sure that like it's not crazy big. I guess 184 megs is kind of big. Why is this so big? Oh, because I pulled down that thing, didn't I? Let's get rid of the TIFF folder. We don't need that. Do I care? I'm being dumb, aren't I? I can type, right? Jeez. So pulling down everything from the first VM. That is to say, we're pulling down all of the things from that we use to start fuzzing the lib.jpg source thing, and we're gonna toss them all over to the new VM, and get it set up so we can do the JPEG binary fuzzing, and then we'll start on SQLite and file. It's a lot of files. Unfortunately, they're all tiny, right? Like, look at all those 4-byte files going across, and that most of this time is spent creating new files. You know, I actually don't need all of those. If I remembered where they were, I can get rid of all of them. Or delete them before we go to the move everything over to the new VM. I'm gonna break in because doing so, we still have to have all the overhead of the first several files.
Keeps us going when we're fighting. I can't find the right words to say, but I know it'll be okay. I know that we'll be okay.
Ooh, got all fast and jumpy.
No matter what I say, no matter what, I'll stay by you.
It's a lot of tiny files.
When we had that feeling, the stars were our ceiling, past the edge of town, cause we had nothing else to do. Dreaming in full color, loving like no other. No wasted days when I was wasting them with you. I was wasting them when you were showing me.
Jeez. Maybe it would have been faster to kill this. Although I think I want most of these, right? So like these are JPEGs, and I think I want most of the JPEGs. please be almost done now. Okay. So what's actually running on this? Yeah. Okay, so apparently at some point this killed the fuzzing. That's good to know. This is monitoring O crashes, so that's the only one of those output files we need. Go to the PNGs, go to test cases, and get rid of WebP, and get rid of JXR. Actually, let's SSH back in real quick. This is in the JPEG X2. The most recently changed one was inputs 4, so that's the only one we're going to keep. Okay. CP-R, because we're recursive. And now we wait again. Hopefully not quite as long.
Upon a star last night and thought of you, but it must have been a dream, 'cause you're not here. I've never been one to believe in fairy tales or fantasy, but perhaps it's time for a change of mind. I guess there's a first for everything.
Ah, much faster. Good. Okay. So we have all the radio stuff here, and if this all works the way it hopefully does, let's start with the JPEG binary, because we have good inputs for that. And it looks like it works exactly the same way. So, JPEG B2, actually let's get screen before we get too far. Doesn't need to be screen, screen's just, I'm more familiar with it rather than TMUX. I know a lot of people prefer their TMUX. Okay. That's interesting. Exec format error. Seriously? Am I a moron? Did I somehow end up with a 32-bit VM? Apparently I am, and I ended up with a 32-bit VM. Awesome. Does this still work? What am I doing? Yep. I think I'm gonna have to rebuild this VM. So it's actually a 64-bit VM. Freaking awesome. Okay. Well. I want... Where is the link for it? Alternative downloads. Past releases. Okay. Well, this is another one of those streams where we did not get any of the things I wanted to get done. Well, I mean, I got parts of it done, but apparently having the right architecture is hard. Now, I know there are ways to get this to work anyway. Like, I could get the libraries and it should work in QEMU anyway. But I actually think doing this may be faster. So, we're gonna call this one a day. And, yeah, not happy about that. But, I guess we're gonna leave this where it is. And we'll pick up later when I actually have this VM built. Because watching that is not going to be fun at all. So, with that said, thanks everybody for tuning in. Hopefully this was entertaining at least, and unfortunately did not go anywhere, so I can't say it was good, but hopefully it was at least entertaining. In any case, I will see you all later. Bye.
So, like I said, this was quite discouraging. I ended up in 2 different weekends wasting quite a bit of time because I just didn't have the right VMs that I thought I had set up. However, they do get set up, and in fact, I actually use this Ubuntu 1604 32-bit VM later on. We'll see in the last episode why that's going to be useful, but at least it was not entirely wasted. With that said, we didn't make a lot of progress in this episode, but the contest is still ongoing. If you want to take some of the crashes that I have from the Rode0Day competition, do some triaging and try and exploit them, you can totally win some of the Hacking 2.0 ebooks from the Humble Bundle that was released several weeks ago now. But I have 3 of those to give away for people who decide to do some triaging and get some exploitation done. And like always, if you have any questions or comments, please please let me know in the comments down below or on Twitter, whichever one's going to be most useful for you. In any case, I'll see you all next week. Bye.